Alrighty, so for the first thing that I'll be doing is using my smudge tool to blend in each of the different color and value areas. What this does is it does give me a very smooth, almost plastic looking area, but it also helps me transition from one plane to the next. Now you'll see me grab a brush tool, pick up some local colors from my picture, and start to add in a little bit more texture type areas. For me, and this just kind of works out for me, I love to work on the eyes first. Once you get the eyes set, the rest of the head kind of falls into place. That should also have the smallest details. Since your eyes are your main focal point, you want to have good small highlights, especially the little highlight that's in the eye, and you want to have good shadow shapes that are created inside of it. Now you'll notice I'm not going for 100% photorealistic detail. I'm trying to pull back a little bit and keep it looking very painterly. I'm going to be honest with you. Portrait painting is not the easiest thing for me to do. This is something I always struggle with, and you'll see me constantly overwork and rework different areas. This is just something I need to practice a lot more, and it may be a little bit evident in what you're seeing here. But what I'm trying to do is stick back to my basics. I'm moving around the head, and then I'll come back to an area that I may have a problem. Oftentimes I'll just walk away and I'll come back to an area and I'll try to see it a little bit differently. But working from one area to the other, moving from the eyes, maybe down to the nose, then to the forehead, into all the little different nooks and crannies, just sculpting out the rest of the face. Trying to pay attention to how each value relates to each other, and also trying to remember how the shapes are formed. The nose itself, the front side of the plane, it's very shiny, but it's got to round off around each edge. Now for his skin texture, it was very unique to do this because there's no one solid area that stays the same color, the same value. And to do this, to try to achieve this with a brush is very difficult. I'm having to rework it, and ultimately I think my final product didn't get too close to it. I could probably go back in, add a few more color spots, add a few more highlight and value changes, and I think I can work it up a little bit better. Here I am jumping the gun a little bit, trying to add a little hair detail to his eyebrows, just trying to get something set down in there. Don't be afraid to change up your brushes. Again, that's what the brush dynamics is all about. I think what I was trying to achieve was a more painterly type of effect, so I didn't have to stick with the details. But you see, I'm trying to jump ahead and put details down. It's something I really don't want you to do. If you start putting details down, then you go back and you overwork it, you're going to lose those details and you're ultimately just going to have to do more work in the end. Start off broad, large brush, then start narrowing it down to smaller and smaller brushes to get the level that you're really looking for. Again, I'm also squinting my eyes. I'm trying to see shadow shapes. I'm trying to see light shapes in each little area, especially under the chin. Everything stays very dark. Everything's 50% gray or 50% dark or darker. So I never want to have too much of a highlight, except right there on the right side. There's a little bit of light casting through for this one. Another thing you'll notice is the outline of him. His face in my painting is a little bit broader than his actual face is. Later on you'll see me clean that edge up just a little bit. Here I am working on the left cheek, brightening it up just a bit, but I still don't want to get too close to the highlight on the other area. Another thing I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit more red to it. If I try to pull local colors straight from the photograph, of course it's going to give me the true color, but in reality it's going to give me a very yellow kind of tone. And what I really want to pick up on are some of the more reds in his face. If you can add red to someone's face, it's going to make them look more lively. It's going to make them, I don't know, seem more human. If you try to pull the exact skin tone on someone, they tend to look very plastic. Now I've moved on to sculpting the ear. And with this, I don't want to add too many details, so I think I kept it just very, very basic, giving me a quick idea of where the holes, where all the little nooks and crannies are, where the highlight hits it, and then moving on. The hardest part for me was this hair. I'm not satisfied with my final product for the hair. However, as a tip, what you want to do, squint your eyes and look for the dark areas first. Look for the shadows that are on there. Look for patches of solid color. Then go on top of the hair with a very, very fine brush and paint in a few individual hairs on top of that. That's the easiest thing you can do. Build up in layers the way hair should be. Never try to paint one hair at a time. I've had several students and I've known people who try to do that. It just doesn't work. Look for everything as a group or a solid shape and paint it in from there. As you can see, I'm just not very, very satisfied with that particular hair. I'm going to go back later, rework it, see if I can build it up a little bit more, and try to simplify it. I think I added too much detail from there. You can see I've cleaned up the edge. Now it's starting to look a little bit more naturalistic. Moving back down to underneath his chin, catching a little bit more of those reflected highlights on there. Now I can go back in to his forehead, add a few wrinkles, add a few textures, clean up around the eyes. If you're working with a really, really bright light, one thing to pay attention to is the amount of shadow that's cast underneath the eyes. If you have too much shadows, they tend to look like raccoons. So you may want to have some sort of reflected light to give a little bit more highlight underneath his eyes. Cleaning it up, playing around with some texture brushes, trying to make his skin not look so smooth. I intentionally kept the chin, I intentionally kept everything that's kind of at the extremities a little bit more, a little bit less detailed. I really want to draw your eye straight into his face. The center of the face is where it should ultimately reside at. You can see how painterly I left all of his clothes, not adding a lot of details. I think even in the end I didn't add a lot of details to his clothing. But I do go back to my original line sketch, give me an idea of where everything is at. Just give me an indication of color, give me an indication of value. But I'm not interested in painting every little pinstripe. I'm not interested in getting every fold, just to give an indication of what it looks like. If you really want to challenge yourself, you don't have to work with the local color, you don't have to work with the skin tone. Try changing up the colors. What would it look like if you limited your palette to just mixing a few colors together? Here I am reaching the end point. I'm kind of working with the background, smoothing it out. The next step you'll see me do is to play around with tweaking the colors. So I'm flattening out the areas, getting those last little details. Now I'm adding on another layer above it and doing some adjustment levels, doing some other type of levels. I've added a new transparent layer, going on and adding a few little highlight touches to clean it up. And you'll see later that I'll change the blending mode of one of those levels. Yeah, this one right here. Grab my gradient tool, and I'm just pulling over a simple swatch, a simple gradient. I think blues and reds tend to work out really good. Since there was a lot of yellow and a lot of orange in this particular thing, I've decided to pull out some more of that blue. Pull out some more of that blue by giving it a blue gradient overlay. Then I started playing around, see if I can do some more tweaking of the shadows. Wasn't satisfied with that. I kept it with the natural solid colors. Here I am playing around with a gradient overlay, seeing how these colors could be matched up, if it would do anything better. All I'm doing at this point is just playing around, just seeing what it would look like. I kind of like the darker look that gave, very chiaroscuro type thing. However, for the purposes of trying to show you what it would look like, I decided to keep it a little bit lighter. maybe add in some reds, maybe push up the highlights a little bit more. That's all I'm doing with that gradient overlay. Ultimately, I decided to keep it just like this. Maybe add a little yellow highlight on the other end. And here's what the final product looked like. Not too bad, but like I said, there's still room for improvement. I'm still going to play around with my brushes and fix up the hair. All right,